want you to say how to introduce.
Peace, Melanated family. Welcome to another Melanated Solutions Media live stream broadcast. I am Kashama Sankofa, your co-host, along with brother Dr. Cleo Manago, and new to the Melanated Solutions Media family, we have brother Kyrie joining us. Kyrie, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the people?
Hi, everybody. My name is Kyrie. I'm a member services navigator with the Black Men's Exchange.
All right.
Yeah.
And well, I'll also say too, because for those of you who have been following the live stream for a while, and you remember back when we were on another platform, the same name is what Kyrie mentioned. I won't mention it because these are two separate platforms. But back when we were, some of us were on that platform, we had a sister by the name of DeQuayla. And DeQuayla is actually Kyrie's wife, his newlywed wife. So Kyrie has been part of the Melanated family for a while, but this is him officially joining the live stream portion of the work that we do. So we are actually thrilled to have him, thrilled to have his perspective. The brother is quite intelligent, and like I say, I'm anticipating what this broadcast is going to be like with him being added to it. We also have another new co-host, Dr. Cleo Manago, who's joining us for the first time.
Did you take drugs before this show? What are you talking about?
Well, of course, he's not new, but did you want to say anything starting out, Doctor?
Just it's good to be here. I hope the conversation is as potent as the topic. And I look forward to talking to you, brothers, and welcome, Kyrie. I know his wife quite well, and it's good to have him here. And here we are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look, there she go commenting right there.
Good. So without further ado, I'm sorry, what was that, Cleo?
No, I was asking. I didn't understand what Kyrie said. What did you just say? What you say?
Oh, I was saying Quayla commented as soon as you said something about it.
Oh.
That's his wife, y'all, in case y'all wanted to Quayla, as Shama just said.
We're just going to get into some quick housekeeping. Y'all know the drill. Like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Actually, thumbs up on YouTube. Share and subscribe. We want you to hit that like or love or care button on Facebook. We also want you to share. And if you can, if you're viewing on Facebook, we want you to migrate over to YouTube. We want everybody to come over to the YouTube channel. And so that is our quick, little housekeeping. Also keep in mind that you can join the broadcast. We'll put a link in the chat for you to click. Just make sure that your background is okay, it's presentable, and make sure that you're, okay and presentable. You don't have to be wearing a tuxedo or anything. You can have your bonnet or your do-rag. But we want to make sure that we can see you and we can hear you clearly. So make sure that while y'all laughing, we'll make sure that your connection is good. And I'll try to practice what I preach as well on that connection too. But without further ado, let's see what our viewers had to say about the last broadcast, during the last broadcast with our family feedback. Adam, can you roll that for us?
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
So, Kyrie, you were getting into them African drums, brother?
Yeah. I heard him start playing. I was like, oh, this is my jam. What is this?
Do you play?
Huh?
You play drums, African drums?
No, I haven't had a chance to get one yet. Every time I see one in the store, I make sure I do a little solo on it before I walk by, but haven't got one of my own yet.
Yeah, man, you should. I mean, I play drums. I play African drums, but I think it flows naturally in a lot of us. Yeah, because I didn't start playing African drums until I was like in my mid-20s, but once I got into it, it felt so natural,
Yeah. Well, we got rhythm.
Yeah, that's the rumor that we got. Yeah, that second comment, was that about Biden?
It was about Biden. She put a Y in there, but it was about Biden. You mean the one about his history of not doing anything for Black people? That was Lene Lathan too. She's a regular viewer and commenter.
I just want to make sure that was clear, because it's not necessarily clear who they were talking about. And I figured it was Biden, but I'm audience, in case they were wondering, to know indeed it was about Biden. Yes.
Yeah, we were having some conversations about Juneteenth. Another person said we don't need a holiday, we need policies. And that was in reference to Juneteenth as well. So if you can go back and view the big Juneteenth episode, and you will see what that conversation was about. Yeah, y'all don't have to get me started on Crypt Keeper, Biden. But anyway, I believe it's about that time for our current events portion. Adam, can we go ahead and get our current events video? Okay, so the first thing that happened in the between our last broadcast and today or this evening would be the sentencing of a murderer and former Minneapolis cop Derek Chauvin, who was sentenced to 22.5 years. Did y'all view the sentencing or any of the news coverage of it?
Well, I heard about it soon after it happened, because it was all over the feed, but I didn't watch anything.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. I saw it come through, and I was reading up on some of the news stories about it. But I don't know. It just really didn't hit like I thought it would. I still don't feel like anything's solved from giving him just 22 years with this, because I feel like he's only going to do he's not even going to do till the door. Like, he's probably just going to do 10, and then maybe he'll be on probation. They might get the case thrown out because they're talking about jury misconduct with the one juror who was wearing the T-shirt that had something along the lines of Black Lives Matter on it. And I just feel like this is just I think I've read, since George Floyd got killed, police killed 1,068 other people. So I'm just wondering where the justice is going to be for them. Like, okay, we got Derek Chauvin, but if you look at the past 20 years, 98% of the cops who have killed Black people have had no conviction or formal charges brought against them. Not even being fired. Most of them are just relocated or put on desk duty for a couple of weeks. So it really doesn't speak to anything.
Well, that was really my issue as well. It's like, you got one, but out of how many? You know what I'm saying? That it doesn't speak to the root of the issue any more than them putting these George Floyd statues up in cities across this country speak to, the issue or the plight of Black people. But you said something earlier though, Kyrie. You said it didn't hit like you thought it would. Like, did you think you might have felt some type of vindication or something before the sentencing, or did you expect more years or what?
I honestly expected him to get more. And I don't know why I still have this large amount of trust in the justice system, even though I criticize it a lot. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy or something. Who knows?
Maybe.
But we had a whole
Cleo talking about maybe.
We'll talk about this after the show. I'm playing. But we had this whole 10-minute video of a man getting murdered, held under a car, taking in toxic fumes and all types of other stuff. Like, I don't know what other evidence you could get unless the jury was right there standing next to Chauvin while he killed him. So just 22 years seems crazy to me because I've heard of people getting way more charges for something like having an ounce of marijuana in certain states. Or like people
getting issued. Before I ask Cleo what his thoughts are on it, I just want to say the judge issued a 22-page document, explaining his decision as he put it to the letter of the law, whatever that means. But I expect that 22-page document to be made public for all to see and review. But Cleo, it looks like you were about to say something about this issue.
Well, I agree with you both, and I agree with Kyrie's analysis. And I really didn't have any reaction to it because I expected what happened to happen. And what I mean by that, I expected the sentence to be insulting. And the sentence was insulting, as I expected. So I didn't even flinch. I did acknowledge it. And some would say at least he didn't get off like other ones did. But my focus is on Black people. I'm concerned about Black people. And I won't get into that except to say that Black people are being killed spiritually. There's a lot of walking dead Black people. And I'm more focused on trying to get us to come to life and get out of our trance than I am on the rare white murderer that did get some time.
Right. Well, we did receive some good news over the weekend. On Father's Day, our dear brother Nick Cannon, y'all know he's been going through a lot. He announced that he's expecting another child. So congratulations to that brother. I mean, that is a little something.
Oh, okay. Well,
look, whenever there's a black baby being born, I hope for the best, and I rejoice still, and say we got another one here.
I'm still gonna say the brother's color struck.
Who, Nick? Well, you know what? I didn't go, and that may be. I'm sure he may be because that is Mariah's ex, but I didn't go in to try to see what the baby mother looked like or anything. But speaking of color struck, Lori Lightfoot strikes again. She apparently got into a clash with another Black woman, city council member, and the media really tried to portray this as the photo that we showed y'all. I included that photo purposely, even though it makes it look like that sister was the aggressor. However, that sister also came back and gave her own narrative, and she explained how Mayor Lori Lightfoot called her to the back and then proceeded to yell at her and chastise her like a child and put her finger in her face. So when you see that sister like this in front of Lori Lightfoot, she's checking her as for the behavior that Lori Lightfoot was issuing towards her. Now, to my understanding, this was all about an issue that is relevant to the Black community. And this sister who was on the Chicago City Council is saying that she's trying to stand up for her people. But I think it's worth y'all looking to, y'all Chicago people. Cleo, you know anything about that, or Kyrie, that y'all see any rumblings of that in the media?
I had no knowledge about this at all, and I'm still wondering what is the substance, what is the issue, other than Lightfoot seemingly having a white foot. Other than that, what's the issue?
Well, I wasn't going to dwell on it too much. I just wanted to bring people's attention to it. No, I thought you were going to continue. I just wanted to bring people's attention to it and just kind of, keep your eye on the local politics. That's all. If you're in the Chicago area, see what's going on with your mayor. We talked about
our producer is in Chicago as we speak. Maybe he can bring in some insight if he
Adam, you care to join us and tell us what's going on in Chicago if it's happening? If not, put in the chat no. I think he just put something in the chat. Y'all get ready for me to freeze a little bit. He said, "Nah, I got a bonnet on."
He has a bonnet on. Okay?
He said, "I got a bonnet on." Listen, okay, so whatever. Chicago people, check out what's going on. Atlanta people, be on the lookout for Kasim Reed and see what he has up his sleeves, because he's already trying to secure grassroots support already. An elder brother just had a conversation with him where he's trying to get the vote out already for Kasim Reed. And I just want my people to start opening our eyes and start looking for tangibles. And when you see somebody that's out here, you know, not giving you that, you got to hold them accountable. But
exactly. What have you done for me lately?
The bigger current event, though, wasn't even in the video because it just happened. And it was the release of William, aka Bill Cosby, and the subsequent ripples of controversy that came after it. The amount of Black dysfunction and schism that has come from this event. What do y'all know about it? What's going on?
As far as I know about Bill Cosby, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned a case and overturned his case, saying that he was not liable for being actually charged for these crimes. Like, they basically cut a deal years ago, and now they're saying, oh yeah, well, that's right, we cut a deal, so you shouldn't have been sent to jail. But I was like, okay, I mean, the justice system is messed up. Like, it was messed up to send him to jail, and this also means it was messed up to let him out. And I think what it really speaks to is that there's a lot of frustration in the Black community about the sexual assault that our women face on a daily basis. Like, I think I've read 1 in 4 Black women before the age of 18 are sexually assaulted. For every Black woman who reports a rape, there are at least 15 other ones who go unreported. So it's just major issues in the Black community. And I get people want to take their frustrations out on somebody. Bill Cosby might have been a target, and he might have actually done the stuff. I don't know. I wasn't there. And it's not up to us to just hold him accountable. I think God can handle that.
Well, I forgot a verbatim comment that Cosby made based on it that was in a file that was not supposed to be released during one of his legal ramblings where he incriminated himself. I think that Bill Cosby did some things that were not cool, that were harmful to women, but, and maybe I should say but, I am from Los Angeles. I used to work in Hollywood, and Bill Cosby is a Boy Scout compared to a lot of the men who are not even concerned about going to jail. Some of you may or may not know about a woman named Heidi Fleiss.
I know who Heidi Fleiss is.
Heidi Fleiss. I don't. Can you enlighten me?
Well, I was getting ready to give you a little bit of information, but Heidi Fleiss was a so-called madam, and she hooked up famous people, most of who were famous rich white men, with all kinds of sexual situations, including something called what do you call it? There's films that are made where a person is killed in the process. Snuff, including snuff films and all kinds of stuff. And when she was set up by somebody who was mad at her, her black book, as they call it, has gone missing. And her black book was similar to what Epstein would have been if he wasn't killed. Epstein was the one who was a sexual predator, who also hooked up other famous people who supposedly committed suicide in prison. You might have heard about him. Anyway, to make a long story long, the bottom line is, I believe that Bill Cosby was targeted, and unfortunately, he was target-able, meaning that he done some things that are problematic. But he was targeted in the grand scheme of things because there's people who are doing things much worse than him. We even had one famous person who was apparently spreading HIV. I forgot his name, but he's an actor. He was in this show called My Son. That's his name. Who's HIV positive and was having sex with all kinds of people. And anyway, to make a long story long, I believe that.
And what you bring up though, Cleo, is is really is very important. But we're dealing with a lot of after ripples from this as well, because that narrative is clear. What you're saying, that narrative is clear, and fortunately, you're not the only one out here saying it. Like, there are other people who are saying and getting this. But what's also happening is Phylicia Rashad issued a statement of support. Well, not really support, just rejoicing that he was released, and I believe she also referred to it as an injustice being overturned, an injustice being overturned. And Twitter went haywire, and there were calls for her to be released from fired from Morgan University as the Dean of Fine Arts. And Morgan University released a statement as well in regards to Phylicia Rashad, basically distancing themselves from her comment. And she's being ripped apart by a lot of people on social media. Do y'all know anything about that?
I don't know any details, but I know this, similar to myself, but in her case, with even more depth and experience, she's from Hollywood too. And she knows that Bill Cosby is a Boy Scout compared to some of the people. A friend of mine who I believe was murdered, who they claim committed suicide, was a part of the Hollywood scene and was threatened by people, powerful white men, because he wouldn't submit to them, and he wound up dying.
You talking about the young brother that played Jet Jackson?
Yes. So don't get me started with this, because Hollywood, just like the presidency and all kinds of systems, have backdoor cultures and have secret societies. And there's things that happen in those secret societies that are mind-bogglingly depraved, but they have power. They're not problematic to the system that's in place. And they didn't do some of the things that Bill Cosby tried to do, because despite Bill Cosby's challenges and issues, he tried to buy a major TV station and had the money to do it. He also tried to positively architect the image of Black people with his shows, and he was trying to do things that were helpful to Black people. And in the white supremacist culture, those things are contraband.
So Cleo, you brought up something. You said secret societies. Now, when you say that, because people would take that and run into all types of crazy places with that, and they'll call you a conspiracy theory slinging hotel. And they'll say Cleo was on TV talking about the Illuminati. He talking about the Illuminati. And what are you talking about? You're not talking about some mythical or mystical Illuminati type. You're talking about real deal. What's up?
First of all, let's honor Gerard's statement. He mentioned that it was Howard that was dealing with Sherrod, not Morgan State University. So we just got to correct.
I said Howard, didn't I? I said Morgan.
You said Morgan.
I apologize for that. I apologize to Morgan State, honestly.
Those who may claim I'm a loose hotep or whatever Kashama just said. I just mentioned
a conspiracy theory slinging hotel.
Oh, okay, a conspiracy slinging hotep. It's so ridiculous I couldn't remember it. Anyway, Heidi Fleiss existed. She still exists. Heidi Fleiss had a Black book that everybody knows about. So when I say secret society, I'm talking about the customers of Heidi Fleiss, for example. That happened. That's proven. There's a record of that. Now, the other secret societies, there's less of a record, but that one, there's a record. And they can't find the book. There's also a fact that Epstein, what was his first name? The one Jeffrey Epstein was a rich person who was on suicide watch, who was being watched, and there was orders to watch him 24/7.
Around the clock, yeah.
Somehow he supposedly committed suicide. And I used to work in law enforcement. It's a very loose system. And if somebody with power and money can have people killed, it happens all the time. Even gang members have people killed in prison because they have a system that's not a hotep slinging or whatever Kashama said. Conspiracy thing. These are facts.
I just wanted you to bring the people down to earth.
This stuff. What was that?
I just wanted you to bring the people down to earth in case they were floating out of space somewhere with what you said. You know how people can get.
Well, now Heidi. Adam just put Heidi on the screen. There she is, Heidi Fleiss.
Yeah, that's Heidi Fleiss. And this is the statement from Howard University. It says, survivors of sexual assault will always be our priority. While Dean Rashad has acknowledged in her follow-up tweet that victims must be heard and believed, her initial tweet lacked sensitivity towards survivors of sexual assault. Personal positions of university leadership do not reflect Howard University policies. We will continue to advocate for survivors fully and support their right to be heard. Howard will stand with survivors and challenge systems that would deny them justice. We have full confidence that our faculty and school leadership will live up to this sacred commitment. So that was their statement regarding Dean Rashad, Queen Mother, as a lot of us been calling her.
Well, nobody's gonna call Howard conspiracy slinging hoteps. That's for sure.
Well, they surely promoted they conspired and deceived black people with their Kamala character. But we won't get into that because that's another topic for another broadcast.
That wasn't Howard. That was Obama who did that on their own. Howard didn't do that.
Well, I mean,
Kyrie, I call Kamala Obama in case you're wondering.
I was like, what? I was like, I'm out the political loop now. If y'all throwing names out that I ain't heard, I'm like, who's this?
I mean, my bad. Well, no, go keep on. Tell them why you call her Obama. We got time. Okay. we're not running that tight.
When I was, and I'll be really quick. When I was an undergrad, I wrote a paper called "The Various Colors of White Supremacy," and it was about how white supremacy comes in all colors because we're all conditioned in this country to think a certain way, and I'm sure I would imagine in your life you've met anti-black people before. We exist because we're all conditioned to be anti-black in this culture, and everybody is subject to the same water as a metaphor. And I predicted in that paper that the first black president of the United States was going to be either married to a white person or half white or both. And based on a whole bunch of theories behind, or analysis, which is a better word, behind why I predicted that. This is way before Obama was even probably around. But Obama, that he's biracial and half white is not a coincidence. And that the first so-called vice president is not fully black and has other. She talks a lot about being Asian American now and advocating for Asian crime, against. So she's not simply a person who was come from the bloodline of people who were enslaved in this country. She has a whole nother bloodline and she's mixed. So as far as I'm concerned, strategically, she's doing the same thing that Obama did in terms of why he was chosen to be in that position. And so I call her Obama because she's the second coming of the biracial, not particularly black folks who are in these vice president and president positions.
You did that in 2 minutes. You broke that down.
That was pretty good. It makes sense. It sounded like that Thomas Jefferson statement that he made where he said the greatest solution for black people is either send them all away or intermix with them to the point where neither race is indistinguishable from the other.
Mm.
Well, that's what we're doing now. That's a whole nother show. Maybe we might get into that, but we're in that age now where that latter recommendation is what's being done.
Mm.
Yeah,
and that's a symbolic optical power of Obama and Kamala, or who I just call them Obama and get it over with. That's the optical. That's the optical power of them in terms of that agenda that you just read that presidential person had. That's what's happening right now.
Mm.
It's hard to find. I'll close off with this by saying it's getting harder and harder and harder to find two black people loving each other in a TV situation, not unless it's a comedy. And even then, often one of them is biracial. But like Blackish, for example. But it's becoming more and more difficult through corporate promotion of their products, through TV shows, through movies. If there's a black person in it at all, they're often biracial or have a biracial partner, or they have a white partner, or they're just by themselves, following white folks around.
Mm-hmm. It makes
sense.
We definitely slanging. That's not no what's that thing? Somebody conspiracy slinging notion. That's a fact.
Soga said, yeah, and Biden loves his interracial commercials. But I can see us doing a broadcast on the buffer zone where we talk about these different buffer groups that are being created or promoted. But not tonight though. But I'm glad we got into that, because that's something that we need to do in the upcoming broadcast. But tonight we are discussing killing the seeds of revolution. Now, this is going to be a 2-part broadcast. We're doing part 1 tonight so that we can get into the background of it. But we do have a breaking story to cover, which is the story of Brother Othal Ozone Wallace, who is accused of shooting. Well, he's actually charged with first-degree attempted murder of a law enforcement officer. And he's accused of shooting a police officer in Daytona Beach, Florida. We're going to get to that. But first, let's go through the killing the seeds of revolution, because I want us I want the audience to be a little familiar with these stories and have done your own research and looked into it for yourselves before we bring on Anonymous Revolutionary. Anonymous Revolutionary will give us an interview, and they have some insider insight into the stories of not just of Malcolm X's grandson, but as well as of the so-called death and suspicious death, and what many of us believe to be the murder assassination of Dr. Khalid Muhammad, the late Honorable Dr. Khalid Muhammad. And for those who aren't familiar with Dr. Khalid Muhammad, he also had a son. His son was named Farrakhan, after the minister Louis Farrakhan. However, after Dr. Khalid's death, what many of us suspect to be murder, Farrakhan does not promote the same message, and he does not engage in the same revolutionary work as his father. In fact, he's changed his name to Farrah Gray, and he does more of a motivational self-help type of message. And many have pointed out that the background or the biography that he promotes does not really line up with his actual background and his actual biography. And so we're going to delve into that story, as well as the story of Minister Malcolm X's grandson, who was also known as Malcolm Shabazz, who was also killed under suspicious circumstances in Mexico. Now, what we do know is that he had a troubled youth, troubled background. We'll talk about the death of Sister Betty Shabazz, who died in a house fire that Malcolm Shabazz, the grandson, was convicted for being responsible for when he was a young boy. But he later began to get political and became an activist and started following in the footsteps of his grandfather, took a pilgrimage to Mecca and came back and got involved in some struggles and then was killed. So we're going to talk about the concerted effort of white power to not only kill our leaders, but to neutralize their male heirs and descendants, and why that is important. But before we move on from that, Kyrie, I know you're kind of looking a little mind blown, and Cleo, I know you have some knowledge on both of these subjects. So I just want to hear from both of y'all, like what do you think about it, because that's going to be a very good interview that we do with Anonymous Revolutionary.
Kyrie.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Cleo, for letting me go first. It's hard being black sometimes, because you really feel like a conspiracy slinging hotep when you hear these stories and you just believe them. You like, you know what? They probably did kill him, Yeah. And if it wasn't a white person that actually pulled the trigger, it probably could have been a black person that did it. And you could easily make the argument that black person had post-traumatic slave syndrome. You could have made the argument that they were in a situation where they were just living through their trauma instead of coping with their trauma.
Or in a way that I always say it, because there's a lot of talk about Malcolm's murder as well, and I believe it was a black person that pulled the trigger in that case.
Yep. And it was a black person that got Garvey.
Though. White power is always orchestrating it. White power is always at the root. Like there is never just an organic beef among, you know, black people that causes, you know, this to happen to our leaders. Whatever was going on between Malcolm and the nation, you better believe that, you know, white power did what they could do to wedge in between that and actually fueled and what do you call it, steamroll spearheaded and orchestrated the murder of that brother, just as they do each of these. So, but yeah, I mean, when you said it's hard being black, bro, I was getting ready to travel for the press conference we just did for Brother Ozone, and so much was happening, and my phone dying, and and I'm rummaging through my bag trying to find my other phone and hook it up to the Wi-Fi. And then after a while, it was like 10 o'clock. I just threw it down. I was like, God, I'm tired of being black.
Like, can I just wipe this paint off real quick? Like,
yeah, I kind of black doesn't tap out. I kind of black doesn't look for ways to escape. I kind of black is active in it. Is resisting. You know what I'm saying? What it is that's being done to us as black. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is hard. You're right. It's hard. But Cleo, what you were about to say something too?
Yes, I think it's important to deflect the tendency to call people who tell the truth conspiracy slinging hoteps, and with the goal of doing that, I wanted to talk about some patterns that are the truth that everybody can find. First of all, have you all seen the show Exterminating All the Brutes?
Wait,
have you ever heard of it now?
Exterminating All Brutes?
Exterminating All the Brutes.
This show is on what platform?
All right, well let me just talk about that real quick. I'm going to move past this if you haven't seen it yet. But I didn't know about the show myself at all until last week. A good friend of mine, we're talking, and she mentioned it in passing. And actually, had I heard of it, and I had not heard of it, but it's a show called it's a mini series, a documentary series called "Exterminating All the Brutes" by Raoul Peck, who's a brilliant filmmaker. Y'all got to see it. Matter of fact, we have to have a show that talks about that series. But I hadn't heard about it. They're not promoting it, Kashama.
Right.
It's on. Well, they promoted it on Democracy Now.
Yeah. Well, that's of course that's not CNN. That's not mainstream, and you have to go find that. And now you know about it because I mentioned it. Otherwise, a lot of people don't know about this movie, this documentary series. Anyway, I would just say some names for some people who were killed by the system of white supremacy mythology that has finally been acknowledged to some extent. Thomas Sankara. Anybody remember him?
You said Thomas Sankara?
Okay, yes. Look up.
Yep, Burkina Faso.
Sankara.
Yep.
Right.
Burkina
Patrice
Faso.
Lumumba.
Congo.
Patrice Lumumba was the so-called Congo. Toussaint Louverture, who
Haiti
won a fight fair and square, if you will, and then after the fight was over, white folks said, okay, now that things have changed and you won, let's meet to talk about how we're going to go forward. And they kidnapped him and exiled him and locked him up forever because that's what they do. And then Marcus Garvey Jr. just died prematurely. Huey Newton died under strange circumstances. Marion Barry Jr. died, which is Marion's son, prematurely. Marion Barry, I
didn't know his son died prematurely.
Yeah, his son died very young too. And
well, don't forget Dr. Chokwe Lumumba too.
Absolutely.
Who was a picture of health.
So Thomas Sankara and Patrice Lumumba, and what happened ultimately to Toussaint Louverture, are undeniable facts in terms of white supremacy coming to get them and murder and destroy them. That's a fact. In this country, we have Martin Luther King. In this country, we have the FBI. in the COINTELPRO program, because even though it was black hands, listen closely, this is all documented. Even though it was a black hand that killed Malcolm, the brother who was involved in that committed suicide himself because he was living with the guilt of what he did, and he admitted being set up to do that. So that's not those slinging. It's those ridiculous. I can't remember the line. Conspiracy slinging. These are facts. And if you watch Exterminating All the Brutes, which is full of documented facts about how depraved, vicious, wrong, crazy, evil, inhuman, all kinds of other words that white supremacy mythology is, the facts are there. So ain't nobody slinging no conspiracy. These are facts. And when it comes to what happened with even Farrakhan, little Farrakhan, who changed his name to Farrah, he did that to appease whiteness. So the impact of whiteness, this deadly impact on us, including to the point of creating corpses, it's not just slinging no conspiracies. This is a fact. These are facts.
I have a question. Do either of you feel as though these sort of situations have been normalized within our community? Yeah. Like when we hear something like that happening, we just think, oh, that's just something that happens. That's just what goes on. Yeah. Even though it's the most
No, finish your commentary.
No, I was going to say, even if it's so fantastical, like the Nat Turner story, they boiled his bones down in the grease and then drunk it as an energy drink. Like you hear that and you're just like, oh, that's insane. But this is like a normal trend that runs through.
They ground his genitals up and used the powder as an aphrodisiac.
What?
They did very similar to Patrice Lumumba's body. But getting back to more contemporary culture.
Y'all, okay, so that is pretty grim and gruesome what we're talking about. And I don't want our viewers to have a breakdown like I had that night. You know, I was like, we tired of being black. You know, I snapped out of it. Don't y'all worry about Kashama St. Kofi. All right. I snapped out of it real quick. I took about 3 seconds and breathed. All right. Okay. But I did want to tell y'all, Cleo, you weren't there. I don't know why you didn't get the invite. I don't know how I got the invite and you didn't get the invite. Or maybe you did and you just didn't show up. But I didn't even know I had clout like this. They threw a welcome home party for Bill Cosby. They were lit up there in Philly. You didn't know about it, Cleo?
No.
No? Well, I was there. And like I said, it was pretty lit. And with Bill took a photo last night too. Adam, can you show us the photo from last night, the welcome home party?
Y'all stupid.
Are you crazy?
Clean, fresh out.
Y'all got, is that a Kango? Ooh.
Ain't he fresh?
But he had that fit laid out all of March. He been ready.
Yeah.
That's definitely some conspiracy slanging.
But y'all know it ain't nothing like the club when somebody prominent in the community is fresh out of prison, and everybody is celebrating and waiting for him to come back. I don't know, maybe y'all ain't been there, but this is actually.
I want to complete a thought real quick. I promise it won't be 30 seconds, Kashama, because it was part of what I was going to say to Kyrie's question about, do we feel like the community is pretty much immune or has no response to this stuff? When Malcolm's grandson was murdered, the response was relatively tepid, was relatively quiet. And when they gave their angle and excuse about him being murdered, people were like, okay. Instead of understanding that it's strange disproportionately that leaders and their children are being murdered who are black, and it's disproportionately in our case, and this is not happening to the son of George Bush. They didn't hear about Donald Trump's son being somewhere in Mexico being killed, or the equivalent. How many presidents' children you've heard somewhere in the corner getting murdered?
No,
in Mexico or any place else, or any of their leaders. So we have to start looking and stop looking at things through the whites of our eyes and through the blacks of our brain.
So, with that being said, I promised our viewers breaking coverage of the Othal Ozone Wallace case. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, I'm going to give you a brief background of Brother Othal Ozone Wallace. Okay. The weekend after Juneteenth, that was the 25th, on the night of the 25th of June, I believe it was, he was approached. He was confronted by a Daytona Beach police officer. There is a 29-second video that is available for you to watch. I chose not to play that video here on the broadcast because we try not to play stuff that are too traumatizing or triggering. You get the picture. So there's a 29-second video that is very vague and doesn't show what happens anyway. The only thing that we can say for a fact is that there is a police officer by the name of Jason Rayner, the one who confronted Ozone while he was sitting in his car in the parking lot of his apartment complex. And he was shot in the head. He's currently, I guess, in some type of critical condition. That's something we know. There was a manhunt for Othal Ozone Wallace that led all the way to Atlanta, Georgia, where he was captured and taken into captivity by the DeKalb County sheriffs. So with that being said, there is a statement that was created by the Ozone Defense and Anti-Defamation Campaign, which I'm actually working in a part of. But before I go ahead and read that out, Adam, can you give us a photo of Brother Ozone so we can actually see what he looks like? That's him with his children. And the breaking coverage is that, one, he has now been extradited back to Daytona Beach, Florida. So for those who were wondering on his whereabouts and if he, is safe or his well-being, well, we know he's not safe because he's behind enemy lines. But for those who are wondering, where he is, and if he's physically okay, yeah, there was footage released from the Volusia County Sheriff's YouTube page today that showed his transport or his extradition from DeKalb County in Atlanta by plane to Volusia County in Daytona Beach, Florida. So the official statement released from the Ozone Defense and Anti-Defamation Campaign goes as follows. It says, "We, as the Ozone Defense and Anti-Defamation Campaign, hereby release this official statement regarding Othal Ozone Wallace as follows. It is clear to us that the narratives given to the public by the Daytona Beach Chief of Police Jakari Young and Volusia County Sheriff Michael Chitwood provoke pressing questions over existing inconsistencies and falsehoods within their statements. It is also clear to us that the Black community, along with the general public, are being given these false, inconsistent and incomplete narratives as a purposeful effort to slander the name of Mr. Wallace to the Black community and the general public and obstruct Mr. Wallace's civil and human rights. Mr. Othal Wallace, commonly known as Ozone, is a trusted and respected member of his community. He is known for his Black community activism and humanitarian activities. He works as a security officer and also serves his community by teaching weapons safety courses. We ask and encourage the Black community to consider these specific questions in addition to demand clear and concrete answers from Daytona Beach Chief of Police Jakari Young, as well as Volusia County Sheriff Michael Chitwood in response to these questions. What is Officer Jason Rayner's justification for confronting Mr. Wallace? The Ozone Defense and Anti-Defamation Campaign demands access to the original police report and is currently working to provide it to the Black community. The Daytona Beach Police Department, including its Chief Jakari Young and Volusia County Sheriff Michael Chitwood, have released statements claiming Jason Rayner was responding to a call about a suspicious activity. Why is there no recording of a 911 call? What occurred that should make Daytona Beach Police Officer Jason Rayner, Chief of Police Jakari Young, and Michael Chitwood, Sheriff of Volusia County, and any other law enforcement personnel involved believed there was a 911 call? Did they make these statements in the original report while knowing there was no 911 tape? The Daytona Beach Police Department later released statements to the public stating that Jason Raynor was on a proactive patrol. What is proactive patrol? Isn't that just racial profiling? Did Officer Jason Raynor, Chief of Police Jakari Young, and or Volusia County Sheriff Michael Chitwood know Mr. Wallace prior to him being confronted? Did they know about his Black community activism? And the official quotes from them to the public is extremism is extremism. Talking about Brother Ozone from Michael Chitwood, who was the sheriff. Any cop that stopped him was going to get it. He was going to try to kill. That is another statement from the Volusia County Sheriff Michael Chitwood. Mind you, he wasn't there and supposedly didn't know this brother from a can of beans. Jakari Young, Daytona Beach Chief of Police, who is also a Black man on the outside, mind you, said he did that with no remorse. The statement goes on to say, did the Chief of Police, Jakari Young, and Sheriff Chitwood make statements that were slanderous and libel? Did they knowingly lie on Mr. Wallace? Shouldn't Black people have the right to own a personal weapon to protect themselves and their families without being labeled an extremist? Why is Mr. Wallace's background as a safety instructor and educator being withheld? As we continue our Black community investigation, we will continue to inform and update the Black community. All power to the people, the Ozone Defense and Anti-Defamation Campaign. Now, I will add some context to this also to let you know that that brother was a part of Black organizations that went to places like Louisville when Breonna Taylor, the murderers of Breonna Taylor needed to be brought to justice. And they also went to places like Tulsa for open carry demonstrations during the anniversary of the massacre. And during this time, a lot of intel and photographs were taken and disseminated throughout law enforcement. And these are sources, very reliable sources that have given me this information. The pictures and data that were taken at these protests and marches and whatever were disseminated to law enforcement and to local so-called law enforcement. And they are keeping files on people, and they are using that background against Brother Ozone to call him an extremist and to try him in the media and act like he targeted this officer when it looks to be the other way around.
Was the organization in
Tones? My bad. Go ahead, Kyrie.
I was about to say, was the organization that you're talking about the NFC, the Not Effing Around Coalition?
He did he did I believe he was a member of the NFAC and later left. Now the crazy thing is, and thank you, Adam, our producer, he just put the Daytona Beach Police Department number in there, but who you really need to call is also the Volusia County Sheriff Department, because that would be the agency that is responsible for the housing of inmates right now. So it would be good to do a wellness check on that brother and to make sure that they're not putting their hands on him and make sure that they know that we're watching them. But yeah, he did leave the NFAC, and the NFAC really, I was silent on this issue for a long time because a lot of Black people would call you a hater when you have, criticisms of things like the NFAC when it first popped up. So I really took a very neutral outer stance, but I would tell my close friends and people who would come and ask me about it because they were curious. I tell them to stay away from it because it was clearly a smoke screen and it was clearly infiltrated and was a provocateur organization. But he left that and still began working in his community, became affiliated with the New Black Panther Party, as well as some Black-owned gun clubs, as well as his own, as well as other Black militias, which are all legal. These are all covered under the Second Amendment of the Constitution. But yet, for Black people who don't become a murder hashtag, if somehow you survive or defend yourself or even flee the scene, that is going to be used against you. Any type of activism or resistance or any type of Second Amendment promotion that you've done or activity you've done, that they are going to use this against you if we allow this case to set that precedent. That's why it's not about Brother Ozone being my personal friend, because he's not. Everybody knows I'm a revolutionary. I'm clicked in with the organizations, but it's not about me being personally clicked in and why I'm spearheading this, why I'm bringing this on the Melanated Solutions Media platform. This case sets the precedence because this brother did not die. And if somebody had interfered in George Floyd's murder and bust Derek Chauvin upside the head with a brick, they'd be calling them an extremist. They would have to be on the run, getting hunted down like a hog.
That's how it is. This seems a lot like another one of those media situations where they construe it in a way to keep people separate and keep groups docile. Like they say, oh no, don't go and don't interrupt the police doing anything. They're sent here by God. Nobody can tell them anything. Only they can tell you what to do. But that's not the case. And it's like they keep re-perpetuating this fictional reality where it seems as though we're all just helpless in this situation, when in all reality we're not. We can reach out to power.
It's like an extension of manifest destiny when you say that, like they're brought down from God. You know, that's been white power's justification for a long time, claiming this sort of deification or this sort of divine authority being placed on them that just cannot be questioned or resisted in any way. But the number to the Volusia County, Florida Sheriff's Department is 386-736-5961, and we're going to put that in the chat as well. Cleo, look like you were about to say something.
I was just going to underscore, getting back to deflecting the, what did you say? The slinging. Well, you know what you said.
Hotel slanging. You'll call that hotel slanging at hotelry.
Right. You mentioned that this brother is a revolutionary and who's involved in Black defense and activity, and that might be connected to why he's being harassed. Well, I wanted people to understand that Sandra Bland also was someone who had a YouTube channel, who was talking against police brutality and white supremacy mythology, violence and destruction of Black people. And some people think, and I might be in that hotel, whatever Kama Shama said, that club, that she was murdered and tracked down because of her connection to counter police brutality activity. Because it's interesting that somebody would wind up dead, supposedly, when they got we already know her story. Her matter of fact, it's pretty clear that it wasn't suicide because her family got $1 million, and you don't get $1 million for somebody killing themselves.
Committing suicide. Exactly. Insurance companies won't pay it, and nobody else will. No suicide.
That's right.
Ain't no life alert button for that or nothing.
Yeah,
that's right.
But that is a call to action, and I don't know, Adam, did you get that number and was able to put it in the chat? Y'all didn't see that go in the chat, did you? I'm gonna say it one more time so Adam can probably catch it and put it in the chat. It's 386-736-5961, and you want to call them to do a wellness check on that brother. You also want to call the police department. You need to ask, why is Jakara Young, the chief of police, walking around slandering that brother in the media and injecting a narrative that the camera don't show, and he wasn't even there for.
Exactly.
So yeah, as well as the sheriff Michael Chitwood, who is calling that brother an extremist. They're using all of this stuff to try. And also, I'm going to give you something else. What my sources are giving me. All right. There are agencies beyond the local law enforcement, so-called law enforcement, that are trying to grab at this case and trying to involve themselves in this case, such as federal agencies. And they want a reason to do it. They not want a reason. They got a reason, which is to preserve white power. But they're reaching for straws and trying to grab members of any organizations or people that were affiliated with this brother and trying to tie them into him, like the cop was targeted, when it's the other way around. When this brother's photo was taken in all these places and was definitely shared from the FBI to different agencies around the country. That is a fact that happened.
A moment ago, Soga and our producer put it up on the screen, alerted the people that Exterminating All the Brutes is on HBO Max. And the reason I wrote that because there's a circle of considerations happening here that I would like to illuminate really quick. Kyrie said something, and please correct my paraphrase if necessary, Kyrie. You mentioned something about hearing some of the things that happen to us that are thrown into the lane of conspiracy can be difficult to hear. Hearing so much. And I think we should check that. There's a group in this country and in the world, and they talk about this in the Brutes film as well, called white Jews. They usually just call Jews, but they're really white Jews, because this only happens with white Jews who have a mantra, which is never again. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, Kyrie.
Yeah, it talks about refers to the Holocaust.
Right. And they say never again. And not only do they say never again, they will in a minute show you an emaciated body on its way into an oven to show you what they're saying never again, and showing their children and the next generation, this is what we're not going to let happen again. Black people need to have a similar mantra, because we're psychically trained to go to a catatonic state or into some type of paralysis when we hear about the murder of Malcolm X's grandson, when we hear about these things that are being called conspiracies, and then we don't do nothing. Or when some BS was BS to me, called Black Lives Matters, a smokescreen that's begging white folks to let us matter, what is a white supremacist position. Please let us matter, white folks. Please don't let us not matter anymore. We asking them to matter, which is ridiculous. That would be the equivalent of Jews saying, please never do it again. German, they said, no, it ain't gonna happen again. So, yeah, I think, and I want our people in our audience and their families to consider a similar psychology, because when we go into this is horrible what's happened to Black people, this is terrible, and shut down when Malcolm X's grandson is murdered, or Marion Barry's son dies prematurely, or Sandra Bland is murdered, or Bill Cosby is all this stuff, we become paralyzed and we become sitting ducks for more stuff to happen to us. And it continues to happen to us. We're not even offended by stuff that we should be offended by and outraged by, because we're in this I call it a trance, but right now I'm calling it a paralysis. And we should, everybody needs to watch Exterminating the Brutes. So Exterminating the Brutes is not perfect. There's some issues with it, but more than any film I've ever seen in my entire life, it breaks down the depravity, the viciousness, the monstrousness, the wrongness, the stuck-on evilness of white supremacy mythology. And it does feature a lot of the Jewish Holocaust stuff. And that's why I'm bringing it up, because after they show the horrible thing that happened to the Jews can rely on the never again psychology. When they show what happened to Black people, there's not a similar psychology that emerges, except for possibly by default, because of the media, Black Lives Matters, which is a passive narrative. It's not a active, don't mess with us again. I want to say the F word, but don't F with us mantra.
You can say it on here.
And we need that kind of mantra. Black people need that kind of mantra. And young people like yourselves need to start talking like that. Like, don't F with us.
Yeah. And that's one of the main reasons why this, like I say, this case is so important, because we need to start talking like that. Every Black man and woman, I think, needs to be an ozone. An ozone is a Black person that was worth imitating or emulating. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, y'all. Hold on one second.
You're fine.
It was a Black person that was worth imitating. So, but we cannot let Black people like that be left out hanging, because then it discourages the rest of us from being sane and coherent and operating with the B1 agenda, with the Black first agenda and mindset. and your actions being reflecting that. But I will say this: we are wrapping up our time though. I want y'all to make sure that you do like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, as well as tune in. I'm gonna get you, Kyrie. I just want to get out a little bit of
go ahead.
exiting housekeeping. And make sure you tune in. We're gonna start coming to you on Wednesdays, at some point. So we're gonna give you that update. We're not just gonna pop it on you, but we're gonna start coming to you on Wednesdays, and make sure that you're looking out for the next broadcast, the next episode, which is going to be Killing the Seeds of Revolution Part 2, when we have the interview with Anonymous Revolutionary. Y'all don't want to miss that. But Kyrie, look like you had something to say before we close out.
Yeah. I just have 2 comments, and I'll try to TLDR them real quick and make them quick. To respond to what Cleo said, an argument that usually comes up when people start talking about the Holocaust and the plight of Black people in America and globally is that when you start comparing the different traumas that people have experienced, stuff just gets overly messy. Like, who suffered more? But in reality, that's not really what we're talking about. We're saying nobody should have to suffer. The Jews shouldn't have had to suffer the pogroms in Russia and Germany that came before the Holocaust. They shouldn't have to seen the movie The Immortal Jew that was played in Germany years before the Holocaust even happened, that normalized that sort of behavior within that population. So we're not saying that, oh yeah, well, they suffered and they got these sayings, so we should get our own country because we suffered. We're saying that nobody should have to suffer, period, and that there needs to be recompense for these different populations that have faced this.
And well, I wouldn't mind my own country. I ain't mean to cut you off, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm my own.
For Black people, call it melanania, melanolium. But go ahead though. I'm sorry, bro.
The capital is New. The capital is New Medina. I mess with it. But also with the ozone case, I think on June 15th, there was a Black man in Oklahoma who was pulled out of his car and held at gunpoint because of a road rage incident where a white man called him the N-word and then followed him for like 3 miles, calling the police on him, saying he brandished a weapon at them. And this Black man was held outside his car at gunpoint. And then at the end of it, the cops just said, "I'm sorry." Like, is that and really
Oklahoma
enough?
Is an open carry state, I believe. And it might be one of them cowboy states like down south, like Florida, Georgia, stand your ground type stuff. So, but realize that stuff don't apply to Black people.
Nope. This brother was completely innocent. He didn't have a weapon in the car. He was completely innocent, but he was still held at gunpoint and forced to take that trauma from this system. So when you see a brother like Ozone defending himself, it makes sense. It makes sense that people defend themselves in the face of inequality like this, the same way people justify George Zimmerman's killing of Trayvon Martin years ago, the stand your ground topics. Like, why is a stand your ground possible when individuals are facing pressure from a government entity that's also infringing upon their rights in an illegal manner?
And like, just to bring some correction in there, some context, George Zimmerman didn't get off on the stand your ground law. He actually didn't have the justification for the stand your ground law. He got off on I'm white and I said so. That's what he got off on.
Oh, but, Leo, my bad. I always forget about that argument.
What was it you were about to say? Then we were going to wrap up.
I was going to say that I brought up never again in the Jewish mantra, of course, not to do any oppression comparisons, but because I'm envious. I'm just being honest. I'm envious of their mantra. I'm envious of the power of that mantra. If you mess with Jews, even a long time ago, they're gonna get you. They scoured the world to find people that were involved in the SS and the Nazi Party, and found them all and had them all killed or in jail. I'm saying that inspired by George Zimmerman, by the way. That's why I'm bringing that up, because George Zimmerman running around chilling after killing a Black baby like he did. Mm-hmm. And so I just envy the Jews who ain't playing. But let me give some context. I don't want Black people to feel deficient or feel inferior. The difference between the Jews, and that's a whole nother story, we don't got time to get in that, is that the Jews were not domesticated. They were murdered, but they weren't domesticated. They right now can tell you where they came from. They know where their greats came from. They have their own names, their own cultures. Everything is still intact. We were domesticated. So-called African American. We don't know. A lot of us don't know where we came from. We know it's a big old place called the white folks called Africa. We call it Alkebulan, etc. But we've been domesticated. Our default is white. The Jewish default is still Jewish, and we have only fantasy and cryptic African memories, and that was done to us. So we need to know the difference, so we won't feel like something's wrong with us and the Jews are better. No, the Jews were murdered, but they weren't domesticated, and there's a difference.
Right. They don't call us Melanated Solutions Media for no reason. Okay,
exactly.
We bring these not just the facts and the receipts, but the solutions that you need to move forward, and showing you how you need to move with this information that we're given. But that has been our time. Again, I'm Kashama Sankofa. I'm glad. I want to thank Kyrie and congratulate him on his first show, his first episode. And all right, I thank you. I think you and DeQuayla, what was that? The fashion show y'all went to up there in Baltimore?
Yeah, the Pride show. Yeah,
I think it's kind of rubbing off on you. You guys up here voguing and stuff. But anyway,
so let me put some RuPaul Drag Race on, man. Listen.
Just to be real clear,
Dr. Cleo Monago. Always glad to have you in the building.
Yeah, I'm glad to be in the building too, and I want people to realize, just in case they get it twisted, that Kyrie is a heterosexual brother. Okay, so let's make sure we're clear about that. While he over there voguing, don't get it twisted.
Oh,
I got the ring to prove it.
Out.
With his wife.
Well,
we both just stylish. I know it's hard having all this black beauty. It just spills out. I'm sorry, people.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
All right. Well, with that being said, y'all, this was our time, and as always, I enjoy it. And the Droll Homes, you mentioned that you said you want us to come at you every week. We're working on that, brother. We are working on that. There's cogs that have to come together for that to happen, and that's going to be happening real soon. But other than that, y'all stay melanated and stay B1. We're out.
All right.